We're here today talking with Nick Dell about his book, Cowboys Can Cry. Nick, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Just start by telling us a little bit about your book.
My book, the best way to put it is probably a journey of healing, right? I went through a mental health episode that had happened just from me examining all sorts of things that come with being a man in our generation. And part of that healing process was to write my way out of it as such, right? So I wrote what I didn't know at the time was a book, but I wrote my journey of introspection and looking at myself. And it eventually became a book of going from that episode of desperation all the way through to working my way through to redefining the way that I look at manhood today, redefining the way that I look at fatherhood and stuff like that, and trying to understand how we can imprint our kids differently to the way we were imprinted, and all sorts of things and in between. But really, to sum it up, it was really just an in real time journey of healing, not self-help, just literally what I went through and how I kind of pulled myself out of it.
So, as you're going through this, obviously, you said, you never knew that it was going to turn into a book. So, is there a point in time where you can look back and remember thinking or someone saying, "Hey, Nick, you should turn this into a book," or what inspired you to finally make it into a book form?
Yeah, so I mean, a critical moment, and you pointed it out correctly. I come from a family of voracious readers. Growing up, my mom and my sister would be reading four books all at once, and I've written for most of my life, but always kept it relatively private. I've never really shown anyone my writing. So to be honest, I didn't even know that I could write, right? So during this process, part of the healing and reaching out, I reached out to my sister, who is this, voracious readers, read everything that you can imagine and speed reader. And I put it out there rather insecurely and quite with a lot of fear. And she read it, and the first thing that she said to me was, "This is great and it could help people." And the minute my sister said that, there suddenly purpose became wrapped up in this, in one, what I was going through, and two, that maybe, just maybe, I could have the ability to impact others and help them go through something that at times is the most loneliest thing you can ever experience. And the fact that it came from her was just that critical piece that all of a sudden had me started compiling it into chapters and really looking at it as a book, and looking at even the concept of having it published at some point, which today's happened. And really believing that all happened for a reason, and there was a divine inspiration, and so on. So that kind of is when it became a book.
Yeah. What was it like that first time you've written the book, you've gotten the manuscript, you've gone through all this process, it's a long process. What was that feeling like holding the book in your hand for the first time?
Yeah, it's a very difficult thing to explain. Like as a kid, I had always flippantly said, "Oh, I'm going to write a book one day," right? And to have actually had that document in my hand, and it's got my name on it, and I'm sending copies to my parents, and then you see it on Amazon and stuff like that, and suddenly the joke in my family is that I'm a published author, right? Like, to explain how that feels, one, because it's always been a lifelong dream to kind of write a book, but the other, that there's a greater purpose to this book, that even in the very short term now of like self-promotion in terms of my friends and family, there are people writing back to me saying, "Man, I can really relate with that, and thanks for writing that," and cherry picking pieces from it that help them in some way, and hopefully in a really relatable way, that's unself-help book kind of concept. It's more just pick what you can from it. You may not agree with it all, it may not, but pick what you can. And so that added aspect of purpose has made it a really amazing experience for me.
Yeah. I was going to ask if there's an overarching hope for you or, anything else you would want to share with our audience before we end today.
Yeah, look, I would say that it's a short read, you know, it's 96 pages, and I wrote it that way on purpose. In when I started compiling it as a book, the most important thing for me was that it wasn't an intimidating read. It was relatable, and it's coming from a layperson, right? Somebody that's not Tony Robbins, or somebody that is living in a totally different reality, writing about self-help. This is just a regular dude that has had regular issues and went through something really tough that I've now discovered lots of people go through. And hopefully somewhere in those words and me being able to be vulnerable about the process, that it can help others. And if that happens, you know, then I've achieved my goal, and I would be proud as anything.
Well, Nick, thanks so much for joining us. You can get a copy of his book. It's Cowboys Can Cry. It's available through Christian Faith Publishing, also available online, as you mentioned earlier, exciting through
Yep.
Amazon. You can grab it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, even available as an ebook if you like to read on Kindle through the Books app on iTunes as well. Nick, thanks for sharing your journey with us and just giving us some insight and hope, and appreciate you taking time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.